All right, Yahoo Fantasy Baseball 2010 Tucson Toros group. We're going to go ahead and take a look at Week 5 recap. Twice as nice, taking on Tucson's Prettiest. Now, this is probably one of the more anticipated matchups of the season, early in the season, obviously. But these two teams have been at the top of the standings from the get-go, and it was going to be really interesting to see who came out on top. And both teams came in undefeated after 4 weeks. So, would somebody finally fall and claim victory over the other? Well, as it shook out, 5-5 tie. These two teams did not lose. They're both undefeated. They're going to continue on down the road undefeated. Nobody really showed their dominance over the other in this one for sure. Overall standings twice as nice, now 30, 17, and 3. Tucson's Prettiest now 29, 18, and 3. These two teams are right behind each other, second and third in the standings. And very interesting how these two teams have kind of wound up where they're at. Twice as nice, setting the lineups, actively managing the team. Tucson's Prettiest not really doing either of those things and still finding just as much success. So could have a budding rivalry on our hands here. These two teams are using completely opposite strategies and wind up meeting even Steven by week's end. Breaking down the actual matchup though, Tucson's Prettiest had lows in home runs for the season, season low in that category, but actually won the category, and then tied a season high in stolen bases, but lost the category. Also had a low in saves, the lowest production any week as far as saves goes. Very interesting stat though. After 5 weeks, Tucson's Prettiest has had 37 RBIs in 4 of the 5 weeks. You can look it up. 4 times, 5 weeks. The final score in RBIs, 37. Very strange. Twice as nice, had record lows in RBIs, lost that category. As far as the season go, season record lows in RBIs. Record high for the season in stolen bases, won that category. So both teams amped up the stolen base production, but twice as nice still came out on top. And then twice also had the worst ERA that team's had all year. I know we're only 5 weeks in, but the ERA did not look good this week. The battles really weren't very close either. These two teams took very opposing styles into this battle and came up with Tucson's taking 3 of 5 on offense and twice as nice taking 3 of 5 in pitching. Breaking it down, Tucson's won on offense despite 2 inactives and a DL player. No offensive lineup changes again. Actually playing a man short and actually winning 3 of 5 offensive categories. Kind of crazy. Vladimir Guerrero probably could have beat twice as nice by himself this week. Absolute beast. 4 homers, 13 RBIs, even got a stolen base this week. So Vlad really carrying the banner for Tucson's Prettiest so far this season. Excellent average as a team too. Hit 327 as a team. 5 players hit over 300. Now if you break that down, you don't make any lineup changes. If the players who are in play well, the average is going to be higher because overall you're going to have fewer at-bats and the average looks a little inflated. If they play poorly, your average is going to be really bad. But this is going to happen from time to time if Tucson's continues to not make any changes. The scores are going to fluctuate greatly. This week fluctuated in favor of Tucson's with a fantastic average. Also taking a look here, it looks like twice was plagued by injuries. 2 players, Brian Roberts and Jacoby Ellsbury, were out this week. Definitely hurt the team. Ike Davis and Chris Snyder cooled off this week. Snyder's been fantastic in the fill-in role for Miguel Montero for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He cooled off. Ike Davis, a lot of fanfare coming up from AAA for the Mets, and he's kind of cooled off this week. Also, we talked last week about Robinson Cano, his offensive outburst last week. Well, the outburst fell flat this week, so Cano really didn't contribute in the homer category at least. No homers this week from Robinson Cano. Excellent stolen base output, though, for twice as nice. This team is going to be really tough on the base paths. Elvis Honduras and Juan Pierre each had 5 stolen bases this week. So definitely a team that's going to be a threat to at least win that category every week. Twice as nice continues to get great pitching returns from Matt Capps. This is definitely a pitcher that's struggled last season, but picked up 3 saves this week alone. Strange how the Washington Nationals staff has been operating. We talked about in one of the other matchups, Tyler Clippard picking up 3 wins. Matt Capps picked up 3 saves. So very interesting production from that source of saves. The return of Jake Peavy, you would say, also happened this week. Peavy was off to a rough start to start the season. Finally showed who he was in San Diego. finally now playing for the White Sox. 2 wins, 17 Ks, and a 0.53 whip. Fantastic week for Jake Peavy. I'm sure Twice as Nice. Happy to see Peavy back to his old form. Francisco Liriano, though, has been an interesting positive for Twice as Nice. Kind of struggled this week at a 7.5 ERA. And also Max Scherzer got the axe this week. Twice as Nice had enough. Finally cut him after he put up a 14.46 ERA for the week. So sayonara to Scherzer. Tucson's Prettiest picked up Livan Hernandez, so finally made a roster move, added a pitcher, had a 1.29 ERA, but didn't pick up the win. Good to see, though, that he was contributing in a positive way. Not getting the win, but definitely helping the ERA. Daisuke Matsuzaka won, but had a terrible ERA for the week. And Johan Santana for Tucson's Prettiest continues to struggle. Didn't get a win, had a very mediocre ERA this week. As we all know, it was a week or two. Santana absolutely had the worst game of his life. So continue to struggle there with your ace pitcher there, Tucson's Prettiest. It's going to be rough. Also a bad week in the bullpen for David Ardesma. That didn't help the ERA and WHIP categories. The team's got a lot of roster spots that might benefit from some changes. Also, the DL slot. It's open. It's out there. All you got to do, pick up your DL player, drag him to the bench. An extra slot opens up. It says DL. You drop him there. You go sign another player to take his place while he's out. A lot of teams are not taking advantage of this option. It's definitely something some of the owners need to take a look at, especially an owner like Tucson's Prettiest, who's having so much success despite so many roster flaws. Looking at how we're shaking out going forward, Twice as Nice, as we mentioned, now second in the standings. Only 4 games out of first, definitely looking great. Gets Koufax's revenge next week. That's a team that's been up and down all season. Very much like Tucson's Prettiest, has not been making a lot of changes, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there, as Twice had to split with a team that's not making changes. So we'll see what happens with a similar situation next week. But 2-0 all time against Koufax's revenge. Picked up 2 wins against that team last year in the regular season. Tucson's Prettiest is third in the standings, just 1 game behind Twice as Nice and only 5 games out of first. Gets Otis and the Drunks next week. A battle of 2 of the brand spanking new owners in the league, so it'll be interesting to see who shakes out on top there. Otis has looked good, but has had a 4-game skid, while Prettiest is undefeated still after this tie. So it'll be really interesting to see how things shake out next week and see if these 2 teams can stay atop the standings and maybe give Hunt 1981 a run for their money.